like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Directors for Woodbury Leadership Academy, October 24th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. First order on our agenda is roll call.
Mike Bullitt, William Beck,
Here.
Colleen Lockdock, here. Shelby Poole, Carly Sherrill, here. Jolene Scordell,
Here.
Joe Valentine.
Here.
All right, thank you. Second business is Mission and Vision by William Beck.
The mission of WLA is to utilize leadership-based programs and strategies grounded in solid research combined with the demonstrated success of core knowledge curriculum as a basis for a rigorous overall educational program that builds strong skills in math, reading, literature, writing, music, science, and technology. The vision of WLA is to be a school where students and graduates become exceptional leaders and are prepared to take on the academic and leadership challenges they face in high school and beyond.
Thank you, William. Number 3 is approval of our agenda. We have to approve the October board meeting agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the October board meeting agenda.
All right, there's been a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the October board meeting agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 4, conflict of interest declaration. Are there any this evening? No? No conflicts of interest tonight. Number 5, public comment. There appears to be no public comment tonight. We're just whipping right through this. All right, number 6, we have the board and administration reports. I would assume that Shelby had a board report. I don't have it, so we will pass on that until she arrives, and then we can hopefully circle back to that. So 6.2, superintendent report.
Yeah, so you all had a chance to look at the superintendent report. I think probably the most significant items we're going to talk about in the more detailed report later. A few things to note: our enrollment's holding steady. It's actually, as of today, 882 as opposed to 880 when we made this report, and there's an additional 2 students that are on extended leaves that are more than 15 days, so they'll be re-enrolled when they come back, and a couple other students that are already set to enroll for second trimester after Thanksgiving. So holding pretty steady there. We've done some work in our front office to really try and create a shared vision for what our office looks like, sounds like, feels like. We have kind of identified, doing some research, that in the space we have, as crowded as it is, it's a little bit more challenging to have that calm feel because there's so much action in such a small space. And it's something that we are looking at, considering addressing in some physical ways in the future. But for now, we've kind of set our vision for what that looks like and sounds like. Our principals have been working hard on being in classrooms and completing observation process. There's only a few teachers left that have not had their first observation and feedback session with the teacher. The expectation is that each teacher would have an observation, at least one each trimester, along with an opportunity to sit down with the principal and do some reflecting and growing from it. Happy to say we have no vacant positions at this time. We are fully staffed, and we are still really kind of working through the communications report that I shared last month in terms of making our plan to map out how and when and what we're going to do within it. But we are taking some steps of things that are in there. We've begun the process of working on our website and working on integrating it with Parent Square. I've begun working with someone on kind of tightening our messaging and branding that in a way that matches our mission and vision that's been approved by the board to be reflected. And so probably have more information on that in either November or December in terms of that part of it. So are there any questions on any part of this? Any anybody would like to discuss further? Fabulous.
All right, then, we will move on to the financial and reports from our Bergen DKDB. I'm going to click on that. And I will be reviewing the financial report, those key indicators. The average daily membership overview, the original budget was for $847, working budget is at $885, and the actual enrollment was at $878 at this report. The school's original budgeted surplus and general fund for the year is $233,463. The school is budgeting to spend $5,000 out of the community service fund. A projected cumulative fund balance of $2,594,730, or 25% of expenditures at fiscal year end. The school's working budget is projected a surplus of $275,716 at fiscal year end, which will result in an ending fund balance of $2,636,982, or 25% of total expenditures. Projected days of cash on hand is 68 days of annual expenditures. This is above 45 days, meets the minimum bond covenants. The projected debt service coverage is estimated to be 1.29. Should the school bond in FY26, the required debt service coverage ratio will be required to be at least 1.20. If bonding is not completed during FY26, the debt service coverage ratio will need to be at least 1.10 to satisfy bond requirements. Financial statement key points. As of month end, 25% of the year was complete. Cash balance as of the reporting period is $1,898,927 and is up from the $1,446,992 in the previous month due to regular processing of transactions, as well as the receipt of a portion of the prior year holdback funds. Revenues received at the end of the reporting period is 23.7% of the working budget. Expenditures dispersed at the end of the reporting period, 19% of the working budget. Other items, the FY25 original budget was approved at the May 2024 board meeting. The FY25 working budget will be reviewed by Creative Planning and Administration at WLA for appropriate revisions and adjustments based on enrollment and actual expenditures. The FY24 financial audit was held remotely and we presented at the November board meeting. The FY25 lease aid application has been submitted to MDE and approved. Following the report are the graphs to support all of the documentation, which I just reviewed, as well as balance sheets and supporting documents following that as well. Are there any questions I may entertain in regards to financial reports? Good, thank you. We'll move on to 6.4, the Finance Committee report. And I have to scroll just a little bit, I apologize. There we go.
And while you're pulling that up, I think I mentioned this last month, but the discrepancy between what is reported in the actual enrollment and the financial report and what I just shared with you, 882, is because we still have 5 students that are overlapping in enrollment within our school district. And so they don't show up. When he pulls it up from what the state reports, and the students that are overlapping, they don't report to for either school until it's done with one. And all 5 of them are our students, not the other district. So it really is a slap more than that one once that gets resolved.
Good, thank you. The Finance Committee meeting was held Wednesday, October 9th at 4:30 p.m. It was a virtual meeting. This is our regularly scheduled time. During this meeting, we reviewed the statements for September. Jonas reviewed those key financial items and noting that all areas are within the normal limits. Jonas also reviewed the HVAC bids. We decided that that was not something that needed to come for board decision as it was still within the budget. And Jonas also reviewed the teacher compensation committees and their updates in regards to the WLA salary comparisons for the 24-25 school year. And we have some housekeeping left to discuss the new facility needs and financial concerns that may come with those. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be Wednesday, November 13th, virtual meeting at 4:30 as well. We adjourned at 5:15. Any questions in regards for the Finance Committee? Okay, in that case, I would like to make a motion to approve the September financials and October Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approves. 6.5 on our agenda is the Governance Committee meeting report by Joe Valentine.
Yeah, so the governance committee met on Thursday, October 17th at 5 p.m. We got into some review of the 100 series for policies. For policy 101, there were some updates to formatting. Was also the same for policy 103, just some updated formatting with that one as well. And then policy 104, which is the complaints, students, employees, parents, other persons, we did update some formatting and some verbiage, which was part of the board packet that came over for the first reading. We did talk about library materials policy and decided to table that for the November meeting, to do some more research on that. And then also the review of the policy 303 came up as well to update the background checks for, to make that clear that it's for all and it's an annual background check. And that was also part of the board packet from the first reading. And for our future discussions, we'll be talking about new student journalism policy at some point, the new library materials, the annual policy reviews will be reviewing the 200 series. And we're scheduled to meet again on November 14th, Thursday. Is everything on that?
And that's considered the first reading, what we just did, right? We actually vote on those policies next month.
For 303
And the two that were under 303 and,
yeah, it's
and 104.
yeah, it was supposed to be first reading.
It's in the consent agenda.
Approving it's in the consent agenda?
It's in the consent agenda to enter into first reading and then the next time will be.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yep. Any
Well done.
other questions or comments for governance wise? I know we don't do the motion anymore, so I think we move on.
Yep. Okay, we'll move on to item 6.6, the Facilities Committee report. I think typically Ben reads through that.
And, well, so the three principals between Ben, Nick, and Patrick, there'll be one at least at each meeting.
Oh,
So he'll
okay.
be at every third. He just happened to be at the last one.
Oh, I see.
And then Mike is going to chair the Facilities Committee, so he would be the one addressing it, but he's not here tonight.
Sure.
So that leaves Colleen and myself. Colleen, the committee member, do you have a hand on this or help? Or?
Sure, this is a great start for me to try. Let's do this. Okay. We met virtually on October 8th. We started at 4:37. Ben really shared with us the HVAC bids. We went through them. He did not tell us what companies were. He went with this chart, A, B, C, D. We talked over a couple things. And we decided on D. Can I say any more information about that? That's the company we already work with. So we didn't know that when we decided, but I think that's pretty good.
And we decided we did not need to come forward for any type of vote because it's under the threshold, and it's within our budget and under the threshold for the total amount that we need to do it. So this committee selection, we did it that way, but there isn't any action out here because of the amount and that's already within the budget.
Ben's going to contact those companies. Ben also presented some Field and Gym updates. He's connecting with the City of Woodbury regarding that. He's also worked on some construction bids as well. Organizing the safety blinds for Building A. They've been purchased. I believe that's the kindergarten and first grade wing of our school. And then the last thing we talked about was the green bin that Jolene has brought to brought last month or the month before. And he's still working. Ben is still working on that. good location on our campus for that. And that's it.
Hello, welcome. Sorry I'm late. We'll keep moving. Mr. Rice, you're up.
All right, thank you. My name's Nick Rice. I'm the principal of grades 6 and above at WLA, so I'm just going to provide a pretty brief summary of some updates. Hopefully you've already got a chance to look at that. So I just want to talk about how the middle and high school are going. So we expanded and added 9th grade this year. I feel like it's going very well. Our class, I think, what are we at? 24 students or 3 students in that grade level. So things are clicking along. We're getting all of our curriculum in place, which is nice because core knowledge has been adding grades, which is correlated to our expansion in a nice way. So we're ensuring that more and more of our middle and high school classes are using the same core knowledge curriculum that our elementary school is using. We've been adding some other opportunities in our science lab. So, last year we were able to dedicate a room to be a dedicated science lab. So we're continuing with that this year, and we've expanded the laboratory offerings that we have. We've been using more of our 3D printing, some other STEM stuff along with that. Grades 6 and 9 have had a couple field trips already, or one each. So grade 6 did a team building field trip early in the year, and then earlier this week, grade 9 attended the National College Fair, which is at the Minneapolis Convention Center, so that was really great. They got to talk to hundreds of different colleges. We were there for a couple hours touring around. Lots of other high school kids from the Twin Cities and other parts of Minnesota were there, so they got a chance to kind of be in that vibe, hanging out with some seniors and others who were dressed up so they could have more interviews with the colleges. Our kids are freshmen, so they got a chance to be exposed to that. We've added a number of extracurricular opportunities for middle and high school this year. For example, Ms. Skordal is up in the game for archery and making it more of a competitive sport versus a fun club. We've also added ultimate frisbee, a robotics team that competes against other schools, a basketball team and program, and also just some other clubs that are happening after school. It's really great to see. Our high school, we've added, right now we're offering a couple different math options. So last year when I talked to the board about some of my ideas for high school, I talked to you a little bit about some online learning options. We didn't go in the same flex route that we had discussed last year, but some of our students are doing some online learning through a supplemental resource. So what that means is that some of our more advanced students in math are able to take more advanced math classes that we're not able to offer to the general population. We're doing that. They're taking online classes that are supplemental. So they do that in this building. We have space created for them that's supervised in this building, but they're working with teachers that are in other locations at that time.
We have 4 students doing that right now, is that right?
5. Yeah. We've also added study hall and dedicated recess to middle and high school students this year, so that's nice for them. And then at the end, I just kind of talk about our needs, which are very general and the same needs that I see in schools in my experience. So because we are growing and adding new students and new grade levels, it's just working on our culture kind of at all times. So whenever we're bringing in new students, we're just helping them assimilate to WLA culture, WLA procedures, and so that there's always growing pains with that. But I feel like it's going very well. I feel that the middle and high school, or we didn't have high school last year, but just this whole building, middle school is operating smooth. It's going, I think, more smooth than last year, so I feel good about that. That's kind of just my summary. I know there's more details maybe you got a chance to read, but any questions about any of that or anything related to middle and high school? Grade 6 and above.
You guys know that the actual report is linked on the version on the website right now. That's if you're on the website.
Sorry, I don't know.
No, this is my old version, sorry.
It's all good.
No worries.
I apologize if you didn't have access to it.
I just want to say I'm appreciating that students are able to get outside, those older kids. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks.
Consent agenda. Items are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which case the item will be removed as a consent agenda item and addressed. Consent agenda items are as follows: the approval of our September 26, 2024 board meeting minutes, the acceptance of our governance committee minutes from October, and entering policies 104 and 303 into the first reading, as well as our personnel update. Is there anyone who wants to discuss any of those items? All right, I'm going to do a roll call vote.
William Beck,
Aye.
Colleen Lombard, aye. Shelby Poole,
Aye.
Carly Sherrill, aye. Jolene Squirtle,
Aye.
Joe Valentine.
Okay, motion carries. We have some new board members joining us. To start off, we'll appoint our new facilities chair member. Mike is not here.
He's not here, but he's who's going to be the chair. Or he's willing to do it.
Got it. So we will go ahead and make a motion to appoint Mike. This is what happens when you don't show up. People appoint you to be
Yep.
things. So we will make a motion to appoint Mike Bullen as our new facilities chair member.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And we are filling some empty seats, which is super exciting. We have Allison Pint as our new, is that right? Tint, sorry. To the new open teacher spot, and then Greg Sane will be joining us as our new parent seat. So that's wonderful news. We do have an oath that we will read, so if the two of you would like to come up, I will hand it to whoever wants. We'll start with Allison. I'll hand that to her.
Do I have to read it?
You do.
Okay, where am I reading it to? Where?
To us. To
Okay.
whoever.
I swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, and that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the school board members of Woodbury Leadership to the best of my judgment and ability. Should I have held my right hand up?
I swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, and that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the school board member of Woodbury Leadership Academy to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you.
Now we're at the next meeting.
They come to the table at the next meeting.
Go to the table.
Yep.
Sworn in.
Yep. All right, I would make a motion to appoint Allison Pint to the new open teacher seat.
Second.
All right. Any further conversation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Welcome, Allison. I'll make a motion to appoint Greg Sane to the open parent seat on the board.
Second.
Any further discussion? So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So welcome, Greg. Thank you guys both for volunteering your time. We appreciate it. It'll be nice to have a full board again. So. All right. Follow up from the transportation. I'm guessing that was the parent comments of the board.
Well, from
Or
the
just in
discussion
general?
last month, we discussed the challenges with the routes being longer than is acceptable, really, and the reasons for it, and is there any potential solutions? We discussed potential solutions for next year, and you probably do want to do that comparison one. That's all we're going to look at. But we talked about solutions for next year, including more buses, doing our routing differently where families don't have stops quite as close to their house necessarily. We talked about possibility of even doing some of our own busing. And so this is just kind of an update to circle back on a couple of those things. Let you know, I have been working and following up on the possibilities of doing some of our own busing next year. I have a third meeting with the first student next week to look at potential leasing buses and what that could look like, sound like, feel like. We would also potentially explore something similar with Monarch and or other companies locally to try and control costs. We also talked more in theory about what it might mean to have the stops be not so close to the house and how it might impact things. And kind of the overriding theme last month was probably wouldn't make much sense to try and change things now and disrupt families after the routes are started. But we still wanted to go through the process of really analyzing what it might look like and how it might impact things, just to make sure that we don't want to do it for any of the buses this year, and also to give us the information about thinking about how we want to do things for next year. Because realistically, if we keep doing things the way we're doing them, and we want to try and keep our routes down around an hour, we'd have to be adding 3 buses next year. And we'd be over $1 million in busing costs, and it's just, it's, as we talked about, that's 3 buses is 3 teachers, right, in terms of what things cost. And so in terms of where things lie and what we do. But anyways, I met with Demi from Monarch, Ben Broderick Transportation and Facilities was with, and Colin Sher, who's helping oversee transportation. And we looked at a couple routes together, and it took about an hour and a half to do the first route to try and figure it out. And so then after we did a couple routes, I said, okay, Colin and Demi, you take a day and come and do all these routes, and you do them kind of with these parameters. And so then they did the other 10 routes and brought them to me, and then I did some analysis with them, kind of looking at how far people would have to really go, how much difference it would make. And so this first page is just a comparison. And for bus 1, it would save 9 minutes of what we talked about. But if you go to bus 1, the ones in red I think are highly problematic. Where if we were to try and do something, it would, I think, would at a minimum require an in-person meeting with the family to really see how it impacts them first. And looking at it, this is having one student that goes from being a house stop to being half a mile, which is more than the 0.3 of a mile limit we were even saying, to get to that 9 minutes of savings. And so, like, my analysis there was that's not a non-starter for this year, right? I couldn't ask those families to do it. As we went through them, there's 5 of the buses where I think it might be possible, and my plan to follow up is to meet with the families that it would be problematic before making a decision on any of those 5 buses. And if we decide to do those buses, it would start after Thanksgiving. So bus 4 is the first one, for example. It would only save 5 minutes on bus 4, but really not much of a, the 3 students that are impacted are in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and they would be 1 block, 2 blocks, and 3 blocks from their house. And the one who's 3 blocks is in 8th grade, a little different. But it seems to me that even though it's only 5 minutes, that's not an unreasonable ask of a family. Bus 5 is trickier. It would save 17 minutes and get the route under such a huge savings here in time, which if it wasn't that, I think I would have said this is a non-starter too. But with that significant amount, I'm thinking at least try and meet with these families and see how it would disrupt them before making a decision that are impacted, and see if for the greater good they would be willing to do it. And so that's kind of, it's not a scientific formula about which one's for exploring and which one's not. It was kind of eyeballing it. And so anyways, long story longer, I'm gonna, for those, unless the board wants to push me a different direction, I plan to meet with the families from those 5 buses that are in red, and at least talk on the phone with the families in orange before making a decision about doing that. And if I feel like there's enough there that is worthwhile, I don't know if that's necessarily a policy change. But where this will come to the board is I want to come back to the board in December, January, something like that, February at the latest, and say, here is the recommendation we're proposing for next year. I would like to get some survey data before, so probably more like February, actually, thinking about the survey data. I'd like to get some survey data, which was a suggestion from one of the board members, from families on the buses to help inform that recommendation. But it's tricky because busing is 2/3 of our families, maybe almost 3/4 of our families are using buses, and if it doesn't really work for them, they can't do it. It's a reason the families may decide the school doesn't work for them, and we certainly don't want to take families out of being here, but there's also a reality of it's just so expensive, it has such a big impact that there's also got to be some flexibility. Locally in South Wash, it's 1 to 3 blocks is what the expectation is. And so that may be matching where the majority of our students are from policy, so it wouldn't be any different than there. Might be a starting place for the discussion around it when I bring it back. So, but the analysis is done, you can look at it. Of course, it may not match 100% for next year because we won't have exact same students, but it gives you an idea of how much this level of changing things would impact things time-wise. Questions? Yes, Ms. Pint.
What is, in other districts, my home children district being one of them, they charge people for riding the bus, especially if they're closer. Have we ever looked into charging families for riding if they live a certain distance away or whatever? I mean, we don't want to do that, right? But the convenience of riding the bus versus dropping your children off, like, it's a low fee, you know, I don't know. I know we have some parents, I'm not really quite sure what I know that I don't want to be charged for my children riding the bus, but I don't know if that's something that we offer, or if, what does it look like? So then that, you also had mentioned that you were looking at getting our own buses. What do you mean by that? Like, are we purchasing buses? Because we don't really want that on our...
Well, in theory, it could save us a lot of money doing that over time.
I guess I've been at another school where we've had buses and then we can't get drivers for it because we can't pay them enough.
It's a much deeper discussion that we've researched pretty deeply. Part of the reason that the other schools that I've been in communication with that do it, a lot of their bus drivers are also custodial staff, are also employees during the day, and so it actually ends up being a good full-time job, you know, or even a little bit more for them, is how they've done it. What we're looking at short-term, though, to experiment with it, would be doing just a few of our own buses to start and leasing them so that we're not committed so long-term until we figure out, which won't save us very much money if we do it. It will just give us the starting place, it'll save us a little bit of money and give us a starting place to, you know, if we were to try and do this, can we really do it and what's involved? And so it will be a small, right now what we're exploring is a small start, doing 2 or 3 buses next year on our own. Yes, sir.
I have a general question, because I don't know how it works. How is a charter school funded percentage-wise, state versus contribution?
It's basically very similar. The challenge in terms of funding is by per pupil, and it'll be in some of the, a little bit about that will be in some of the training you'll do before the next meeting online.
Okay.
But the challenge that we have that's a little more difficult than South Washington County or 622 or local school districts is that we're busing a wider area.
Right.
And some of the bigger school districts will do their own transportation. Well, they'll own all the buses, and most don't anymore. But that's the bigger challenge for us is for everybody. Transportation is a big challenge. The wider area you're busing from, the more challenging it becomes. And so I would say that would be the big piece.
Okay, because I guess my thought was if it's a money thing, which everything is, if it's a money thing, how do we find ways to create more money? And because we know the state's only going to do what the state does, right? But is there contributors or donations or whatever with respect to bringing in more money, right? Because I know I personally know people who could fund this school for 10 years out of their front pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But you just have to. Yeah, right. So I'm just saying, it all comes down to dollars. If that's all it comes down to, you know what I mean? I'm not talking bake sales, I'm talking
Yeah.
about,
Well, there's certainly always a limited amount of resources, and so, yeah,
Right.
if we can get donations, great. But then it's like, how do we best utilize the resources we have?
Right.
And one of the pieces that I've shared with the board multiple times, and we're working in this compensation committee, but, you know, I think there's a priority in trying to improve our teacher salaries so we can keep our strong teachers and recruit the strongest teachers. And it just becomes, is that more important than having a bus go right to somebody's house as opposed to a
Right.
block away or 2 blocks away? And is how I look at it. But yeah, certainly that's going to be a big part of everything that we do with the board. And this, I think we shouldn't get too much more in the weeds of this right now because we're talking about something that I'm doing initial research on to bring back, you know, much more depth once we've done a lot more understanding and can present the options and the realities of it. And that will come in the next few months. Cool. Any other questions about the buses?
I just want to thank you for doing all this research. I know that the families really appreciate that too, to try and get things a little bit easier to get going. And I don't, personally, changing bus routes and all that, that's obviously really hard to do. But it's not something that any other district isn't doing right now as well. Bus routes have been changed right now, and those, so it's going on for everybody. We're not alone in this. So
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And it's been a huge challenge ever since COVID for every school. There's just not enough. The bus driver shortage is real, and they've had to raise the salaries and to such a large extent that, like I said last month, the cost of busing is double what it was per bus when I started 7 years ago. Charter schools, 8 years ago, charter schools.
It'll also be interesting when all of the construction around us is done to see how that affects time. Because like literally it took me an extra
So
19
hard.
minutes to get here tonight because I had to go down 3 exits and like insanity. So
It's so hard.
it's interesting, like it'll be interesting to see when that is all done, what it looks like too. Even like within this year, I hope they get things opened back up.
It's gotta help, right?
Yeah, can't hurt.
So anyway, this is probably will be, if we make any changes, we'll probably want to update you on that next month. And so then we might have transportation in this presentation piece for a few, the coming months here in different ways. It's probably going to be an ongoing piece.
One
for
quick
us to keep
question
working
with it, I guess. Have you already explored like how many potential current WLA employees there are that would be interested? Like you talked about, there might be somebody that's already working here during the day would be even interested in possibly driving bus as well. Is it a pretty low number or is it?
Well, I need more information first.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to approach people about that until I understand exactly all the costs we have so we can
Right.
figure out. I mean, we're not going to do it if the cost of it is not going to, it's going to cost us more money than not doing it. So to be able to figure out what we'd be able to even offer them,
Right.
I want to have those other pieces before
Right.
start trying to approach.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but we wouldn't be seriously entertaining committing to anything until we had that information.
Right.
If we decide to do it.
Right.
Should I just keep rolling?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna try. So this is and this is a summary of data from our report card. So the report card released in August. I was going to present this last month. We had such a long meeting, we put this off to this month. But it shares our demographic data and kind of lays out how our demographically between and these categories are how the state labels them, not the way I would do with white, Hispanic, Latino, Black or African American, Asian American, Indian, 2 or more races, and so you can kind of, I'm sure you had a chance to review the data and look at it, but we're compared to the state, in a lot of ways we're quite a bit more diverse, even compared to South Washington County. They're 60% white almost, we're 36.7. When I was interviewing and applying and researching the position here, one of the things I heard was what a neat racial and ethnic mix of students we have here and what a strength that is, and I think that plays out there. It's beared out by the data. It also shows our percentage of students last year that were English learners compared to the the state in South Washington County, we were higher. We were a little bit less than North St. Paul. Our percentage of students that have IEPs was a little bit below the state and a little bit below South Washington and North St. Paul, but that percentage is rising pretty quickly, and we're right around that state average now. We've had a lot of initial evaluations, and so some of those numbers are changing. And then in terms of the results, if you look at our percentage proficient in math compared to the state, we were 16% higher than the state approximately 8% higher than South Washington County, and approximately 31% higher than North St. Paul. And we were also higher than the comparisons in reading. We were about 10 percentage points higher than the state in reading, 5 percentage points higher than South Washington County, and 24% higher than North St. Paul. An interesting piece is when you look at closing the achievement gap is always being a priority that people look at. With math, our white students performed 3.7% better than our non-white students in math, in comparison with the state where it was a 26-point gap, and South Washington County where it was a 16-point gap, and North St. Paul was a 15-point gap. And then if you go to reading, our non-white students actually outperformed our white students. So we didn't have a gap, as opposed to a 23% gap in the state and 7% in South Washington, 20 in North St. Paul. Our English learners also drastically outperformed the state, South Washington County, and North St. Paul in both reading and math. Free and reduced lunch in both math and reading, we outperformed each of the others, state, South Washington County, and North St. Paul in proficiency. The only place where we were behind anybody in math, we were 13 points higher than the state for Black or African American students. We were about 3 percentage points behind South Washington County with Black or African American students in math. And then we're 23 points higher than North St. Paul Maplewood in math. In reading, for our Black or African American students, we were significantly above all the comparisons. We were 22% higher in the state reading, and about 11% higher in South Wash, about 22% higher than North St. Paul Maplewood. Our proficiency with Asian students was dramatically higher than the state average in both math and reading. And so those were kind of the highlights from the school report card in summarizing. And so I think there's a lot of positive there. I think there's a lot to celebrate and a lot that we can sell with those results. I would also set caution that one phenomenon that we've noticed as we've looked at our fall data and even last year's data is our lower grades, kindergarten, first, second grade right now, are not at the level that the school as a whole is at. And I don't know if we can pinpoint the reason, or we have enough information yet for that, but it's definitely a trend that, hopefully as the longer students are with us, the more they're growing, and the more the results match this is the hope and expectation, but it is something that we'll need to watch and try and understand better what the reasons are. It indicates that it could be challenging to maintain this level of results if we don't get to the bottom of it and really address whatever the underlying causes are. So, questions on the report card data? Okay. I think that was a fun part though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Definitely good news. Numbers are looking much better than previous years.
I don't know. I think the next two pieces are could be real quick. I just think it's good information for a board member to have as they're talking to other people about our school, as, it's where one question comes up, well, where do the students come from? And in the school as a whole right now, 60% of the students are South Washington County and 25% are North St. Paul. Of course, we we are actually in North St. Paul School District in the little sliver of Woodbury we're in, but the majority of our students still come from South Washington County. And then there's the next highest one is Stillwater at 6.3%, and a variety of other ones, the small amount. When you go to resident district for just middle school, we're a larger percentage slightly is in North St. Paul than compared to the school as a whole. It's 27%, and the majority of that is at the 9th grade group we have is really where the difference is. 7th and 8th are really still pretty reflective of the data you see for the school as a whole. But we had a large percentage of students that either stayed or came to us for the 9th grade that were North St. Paul as opposed to Woodbury, whatever the reasons are there. And then by city, if you look at it by city, .75% of our students come from, so less than 50%, but the largest is Woodbury. Then Cottage Grove, which is still the South Washington School District. And then Oakdale and Maplewood are next, which is both the North St. Paul District. The parts of St. Paul where students come from, the little slivers of St. Paul that are actually in the Woodbury School, the South Washington School District, or the North St. Paul School District. So that's where some of those are reflective. But that's where students are coming from. Any questions or surprises about the enrollment report?
Those who are far out, are those like staff member children usually, or not sure?
The two from Farmington are, I was surprised to see from
Cassie, do you have any insight in the students that are further away where they tend? I mean, I know
the
we're
two
not
from-
busing those areas, some of them.
Yeah, the two from Farmington are staff. And then I think a couple were just, yeah, now the rest are staff.
So they're just families that are driving their kids here because this is.
Yeah, I think some of them, they work here.
Mhm.
And so they were looking for something other than public school. And so they work here so they commute.
Got it.
I live in southeast St. Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Throw a rock across the street, I'm in Maplewood. Right? I would drive from Lake Minnetonka to come to Woodbury.
Oh.
I would, and knowing what I know, right? So
Mhm.
I find it interesting that basically everybody there is east of the river. That's
Mhm.
interesting to me.
Mhm.
That's what I was thinking the same thing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like
Nobody
I'm
from
surprised.
Minneapolis at all? They must not know about the school.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and one of the things that we're going to be talking about probably next month, that was an item, is the marketing and branding and some of those pieces.
Mm.
And really, as I understand it, at least in the recent to medium recent past, there hasn't been any marketing happening to try and grow the school because there's been enough enrollment more than, wanting to grow faster than we can handle anyways. And so will be interesting to see when we do some things if that changes at all.
Yeah, that was my question. I was gonna say, marketing, how can you market? Can you market on television? You know what I mean? I have a company that does that, market on television, and I'm a musician, so marketing is easy for me. But do you really want to? Because how much school can you take? How many
Yeah.
kids can,
And that's all part of a huge discussion that will be likely on the November agenda, both with the
all about it.
marketing part, but also the second question you're asking about how many students do we want and why are we marketing? All of that stuff is going to be a big discussion next month in terms of our future direction, and a lot of things. So,
I have one more quick question. I know I'm new, so excuse me. What's the percentage of children that we have that are in 8th grade that started at kindergarten?
good question. We'll research that.
I can figure that out.
Because I've already made it clear in my mind that Kingston's never going to go to another school. This is it. Where he goes now, at some point he'll be driving here, the whole deal. You know what I mean? Because we all went to 4 or 5 schools.
Yeah,
you know
the
what I
school
mean?
has evolved a lot, and it moved locations from where it was
Right.
8 years ago. So the answer to that question might be very different 3 or 4 years from now than it
Right.
would be today, when Cassidy does figure that out.
Well, 2 years ago there was only like 6, and then last year I think it was 10, and then I imagine this one's way more, and then it kept going.
So the last item under presentations is inclement weather. And so as we're getting close to that season, I asked Cassidy to pull up what we've done in the past. And this actually isn't a policy, this is our practices, right? I don't know.
Procedure, yeah.
Our procedures. I don't know that we need a policy, but
You don't.
it's one of those things that board members get complaints about. And so I want to, I mean, I don't know if that's been the case here, but typically in school districts and schools, it's like, you talk to superintendents, it's like their biggest nightmare is trying to decide whether to close school or not, and whatever they do, half the people are unhappy. But the process in the past, what was written here is WLA normally closes, and I think they had parentheses, like usually, but not always, but I took that out. Has a late start or has an early dismissal when ISD 833, so South Washington County does. And I'm thinking we would change it to when ISD 833 or 622 does. If either the district, the majority of our students or the district were located in this closed, if either one is closed because of weather, we close. Instead of trying to, fight that as our normal. And the reason I think it's not always is because in some cases one district could close because the pipes broke or something, or there's something like that was unique to the district that wouldn't be equal. But otherwise, pretty much we want to train parents and put in their communications if either the district's closed, we're going to be closed. If you see either of those two closed, you can pretty safely assume we are. And then at that point, it's just a process of we'll send the information out on Parent Square as soon as possible, and Cassidy will inform the TV stations, and our special ed coordinator will let our contracted staff that are at multiple different schools know, and just a process of how we communicate it. And then some of our policies with staff members about not wanting them to come into work when it's not safe, keeping the school canceled, and some of those pieces are in here too. Just wanted to make sure that everybody, I think really it was number one is the biggest thing that I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of and didn't have concerns about and didn't want me to rethink before we kind of go with this piece, because it is, adding the 622 is a little bit different than what was on there. And that's what I did in my previous school. We had one school where the majority of the students, the majority of students were from, and another one where the school was located, and we said if either or. So that was what I had done before. It seemed to make sense to me, but.
What time is our first bus pickup?
Not till after 8 o'clock.
Like student pickup at the homes?
Yeah, because our school starts at
Right.
9:20.
Right.
So we have a little
Got
extra
enough time, yeah. That's
But
nice.
nonetheless, the issue is we really have to decide the night before, or we have to pay for all the food and not get reimbursed for it.
Right.
So normally when we order 800 lunches or whatever and 800 breakfasts, we get reimbursed the cost of those meals because the students eat them. Well, if the students don't eat them, we don't get reimbursed and we have to eat the cost. So it's pretty expensive for us to decide to cancel after, 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning in that regard. So we really want to try and make that call the night before. But there are rare situations where you don't think it's going to be that bad, and then all of a sudden it is. And if it's a safety issue, we'll leave the cost. I mean, safety's first, of course. So everybody seems okay with this? It's not,
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And so just before we move on to future items, last month, Chair Poole, you were not here last month for this, but we for the first time did where we, instead of having a PDF with all the items at the end, we did these links, and it seemed to be well received. And we started with the consent agenda last month, which seemed to be well received also. So it just makes things go a little faster. The additional change we made this month is trying to structure the agenda with action items and presentation and discussion items as 2 separate numbers, just to make it real clear the purpose of what we're doing. We did the action items first and then the presentation because the action items were quick and easy today. in the past, I've done it with the presentation discussion items first, because sometimes we end up voting an action item on something that we discussed first. So we may want to think about switching 8 and 9, but I just want to check back in on this change in addition to the 2 for last month. If we're doing something different, I want to explain why and make sure the board prefers it. You know, the purpose is to try and make things more clear.
We also added a personnel update.
Yes, and the way we did the personnel update and then having within the consent agenda is also new, which is.
Then we don't have to read all of the names every time.
Right.
Well, there won't be as many next time.
Right.
Right. But, you know, and that would be a thing. And of course, that's something you can't really discuss anyways without going to closed session if there's an item we want to remove.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense to be in consent agenda because we can't really discuss anything confidential like that without it being there. So are we all feeling good about continue all these things? Anything?
For clicking on the links, I just want to, like, they'll say, ooh, this item changes a lot. Is that just when anybody views it?
A couple of the links I changed after Cassidy sent it out. So on the board copy of bus comparison, I had changed this year, and we hadn't really decided to change this year. I realized it was possibly changed this year.
Sure.
So I went and made that change after it came out, and I kind of reviewed it again. And then I changed a little bit of wording in the inclement weather. That was a little funky after she sent it out. So that might be because I went back in and changed a few pieces on the original from what you received after it came out. Sorry. That's my
Anything significant, just follow up with another email.
Yes. I didn't think any of it was significant that needed to be, was.
Oh, that's fine. I just didn't understand how it was. Like, it kept telling me that, like, stop it.
I didn't realize it was doing that.
I could link your PDF and stuff, so they can.
Yeah, we could make these links. Yeah, but of course, then if I want to change it, then I have to send it to her and she has to upload it. It's not just right there, but at least no then.
I think it's okay.
Okay, that was it. I just wanted to check on, since I was unilaterally changing some things in the format, I wanted to check in, make sure you guys are all on board with them.
No, I told them I'm good. I haven't been here for 2 months, so moving on to 10, board communication and future items. So you guys will both join us next month then as official members of the board, so we will be back to full. Is there anyone new? So again, I apologize, I've been out for a couple of months. Is there anyone of the new members that have not found a subcommittee to join yet that we still need to? So we still need to get William in, and then we'll need to get Allison and Greg in. Okay, so I'll work on that, and I'll reach out to each of you individually to see what you feel like your strengths are or where you think you would best fit, and then we'll get you invites for this next month's subcommittee meeting so you can kind of sit in and observe, and if you have questions or anything like that, so we can start to make sure we evenly distribute and fill those spots too. So, all right, anything else? All right, our next meeting will be held here on a Thursday, November 14th. That is earlier because of no, that's not. Is that the third Thursday? No.
21st.
Because of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But Thanksgiving's not until the 27th.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the 21st.
Okay, so our next meeting will be Thursday, November 21st.
Yeah.
Here at 5:30 p.m. And I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?